What about you? You said a term at the very start when we were chatting to you. You said about presence, and you just you just danced over it a couple of times. And presence to me seems kind of interlinked with focus, but it's got a more kind of spiritual, context to it or whatever. And presence ultimately is that capacity to be in the moment and be aware of your senses and your hearing and all those various aspects. Like, what is your difference between presence and focus? And is it just different words for the same thing?
Well, it's a really interesting question. Well, it makes me think about, I went to interview one of the leading neuroscientists in the world, a really amazing man called Professor Earl Miller, who's at MIT, the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. And he said to me, look, there's one thing you've got to understand about the human brain more than anything else. You could only consciously think about one or two things at a time. That's it. This is a fundamental limitation of the human brain. The human brain has not changed significantly in 40,000 years. It's not going to change on any timescale we're going to see. But what's happened is we've fallen for a kind of mass delusion when it comes to presence. The average teenager now believes they can follow 6 or 7 forms of media at the same time. The rest of us are not far behind them. So scientists like Professor Miller, scientists all over the world, they get people into labs, younger people, older people, and they get them to think they're doing more than one thing at a time, and they monitor them. What they discover is always the same. You can't do more than one thing at a time. What you do is you juggle very quickly between tasks. You're like, wait, what did Bob just ask me? What is this message on WhatsApp? What is this message on Facebook? What does it say just happened on the TV over there? Wait, Bob, what were you saying again? So we're constantly juggling. And it turns out that juggling comes with a really big cost. The technical term for it is the switch cost effect. When you try and do more than one thing at a time, you do all the things you're trying to do much less competently. You make more mistakes. You remember less of what you do. You're much less creative when you're not present with one thing. And this is a really big effect. I mean, I'll give you an example of a small study that's backed by a wider body of evidence. Hewlett-Packard, the printer company, they got a scientist in to study their workers, and he split them into 2 groups. And the first group, he just said to them, get on with your task, whatever it is. You're not going to be interrupted. Just do what you've got to do. So be present with your one task. Second group was told, get on with your task, whatever it is, but at the same time, you've got to answer a heavy load of email and phone calls. So pretty much how most of us live, not being fully present with one thing. And at the end of it, he tested the IQ of both groups. The group that had not been interrupted scored 10 IQ points higher than the group that had, to give you a sense of how big that is. If we were all sitting down together now and smoking a fat splish and getting stoned, our IQs would go down by 5 points. So being chronically interrupted in the way lots of us are is twice as bad for your intelligence in the short term as getting stoned, right? You'd be better off sitting at your desk, smoking a spliff and doing one thing at a time than you would sitting at your desk, not smoking a spliff, but being constantly interrupted. Don't want to give anyone the wrong idea. Obviously, you'd be better off neither getting stoned nor being interrupted. But you can see this is why Professor Miller says we're living in a perfect storm of cognitive degradation as a result of being constantly interrupted. If we think about presence, right? What does it mean for me to be present with you and you to be present with me? It means I'm giving you my full attention, or as much of my attention as I can, right? And you're giving me your attention. We could all feel that lack of presence, right? Go into any restaurant tonight, sit there, and look for a group where no one's looking at their phone. It's hard to find them. I look out for them. The hardest ones are seeing people with small children who don't look at their kids because they're on their tech. And I understand how difficult being a parent is, but it's, so that you can see there's been a huge collapse in presence, right? Think about my godson in Graceland. He couldn't be fully present with any one thing. And he could feel that was diminishing him. I could feel that was diminishing him. So yeah,